Hello, how are you? If the answer to that question is or not so well, then this video might be for you. Yes, in this non-knife video,
Disgusting!
we're going to talk about some ways that I think you can make yourself feel better. I'm not trying to sell you anything, it doesn't cost anything, it's just good advice. It's been working for me over the last couple of years. Let's get into it. In this video, I'm going to cover the 4 pillars of the self. I don't know if that's a new concept, but these are the 4 aspects of being a well-rounded individual person, that if you look after them, you'll have a better time. They are diet, exercise, your mental health, and your worldview. I'm going to talk about the changes that I've made and the efforts that I put in to each of those things to make me feel generally much better. But we will start with a brief check of privilege. What's going on there?
Topher, can you explain? Check your privilege, please.
It's getting someone to acknowledge their own inherent privileges and reminding them to put them aside in order to better understand another human's plight.
I am born in Australia, where we have access to good food and healthcare better than many other countries. Certainly being born in Australia is akin to getting the easy mode on the game of life, for sure. A good spawn point. Also, I don't have any congenital issues or disabilities that I was preloaded with. I didn't come with any nerfs straight out of the box, for example, to use consistent RPG analogies, which is probably going to happen. And she's doing it again. You know what a camera is. You don't want to get caught on camera doing it, do you? It's embarrassing. You're a girl dog. I know it's not a sex thing, it's a dominance thing. My basic character sheet would say that I work 40 hours a week, full-time, shift work. I have a robust hobby, knife YouTuber, used to cover the cost of that hobby being a knife YouTuber. I am married. We are happy. We have what I feel to be standard amount of life stress, about equal to the rest of the Australian middle class. Some weeks we feel we have a bit of extra money, and other weeks we feel like the wolf is at the door. My job is a bit stressful, but my marriage and kids are less stressful. Some people have it the other way around. What I'm getting at is that I probably am luckier than some people, and so not all of this advice may be as applicable to everyone for reasons beyond your control. Step 1, diet. It is not as simple for a human to meet all of our needs with a bin full of scraps. So what you put into or don't put into your body really does make a difference in how well you can do. It's how you set yourself up for general good health. So I do what is called intermittent fasting. That means that I only eat between certain times of the day, 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. Lots of reasons why people intermittently fast. Mine is quite pragmatic. It's just because you can only do so much damage in 8 hours. And I started this before I was really doing many other health things. So simply with all the good food around, even if you don't really focus too hard on the quality of it, the quantity of it is limited just via time. It is true that my workouts in the morning could possibly be better if I did eat a breakfast before I went, and that is something I may well change later down the track, but right now it's working for me. Due to my exercise regime and my goals, I am trying to take on 1 gram of protein per centimeter of height. Other people use the 2 grams per kilo, or the 1 gram per pound. But either way, I'm on about 180 to 190 grams of protein per day. So my first meal will ideally be a steak and veg and rice, pretty complete meal. If I can't make that happen, I will supplement with a protein shake. The bad thing about protein shakes are, they make your farts smell like someone else's farts. For the first while, they definitely don't seem like your own brand. Protein powders are fine, but using real foods is always better. Meat, eggs, beans, nuts. A good high protein first meal with some fiber to stop those doorknob turds is the way I like to start my day, to break my fast, if we can boil back to the original word, breakfast. In terms of supplementation, I do take a bit of creatine. Creatine is a fairly well-researched supplement, shown to have benefits for muscle size and fatigue levels, as well as new research showing that it gives you a good brain.
I think you've got a fine brain, Jack.
I don't get too far into the weeds with other supplementations. Sometimes I'll take a multivitamin or an omega-3, but that's about it. I am quite the sugar addict. I had a great deal of trouble getting myself off a constant supply of sugar. If left alone, I will eat an entire bag of marshmallows, or fantails, or minties, or Moam sticks from Aldi. So what I try and do is, when I want a snack, I'll have a protein bar. They are not perfect, they definitely don't taste as nice, but they are a decent snack for keeping my protein levels up. I generally don't settle for the ones that have less than 20 grams per bar, but that is how I snack and get through the day. Speaking of things to do to feel better, I stopped drinking alcohol. Oh yes, I know, and I won't rant too long because the new non-drinker seems to be a bit like the old I'm a vegan, so I am aware of this, but there is something to it. Stopping consumption of alcohol almost entirely, as I have, makes every system in your body work better. Every system. Yes, even that system. The one that you're thinking of right now. Much better. I was in a bit of a habit of getting home late, needing a couple of vodkas to settle to sleep. Needing. Those are dangerous words when it comes to alcohol. I was getting a bit chubby. I was getting a bit unfit. I was definitely on the verge of, at the very least, a bad habit. Often people aren't lucky enough to catch themselves until they have a bad habit or even an addiction. As a side note, I find alcohol fairly insipid in that they are now, knowing that people are drinking less, beginning to sell in Australia zero volume alcohol at supermarkets, which I believe may be to get kids drinking it early so they have a brand by the time they are 18. Why are we okay with a substance that if you have more than a handful of people together consuming it, it's that certain that there'll be violence that you need bouncers and security guards and extensive legislation about how much of it you serve? Why are we okay with this? I don't think we should make things illegal, but it's an interesting thought about why we put up with it, and maybe we do just because it's always been that way. So yes, I am barely a drinker. Sometimes if we have friends over, I'll have a few low-calorie seltzer-type drinks, but that is it. The next pillar of health? Why, that's exercise, of course. I started with a baseline of yoga and Pilates about 2 years ago. I used to see a lot of my friends who were in their mid-50s. Some of them couldn't get out of a car without hurting their back, or at least making a lot of funny sounds. Lots of the ees and the ah and the oos and the oofs. Some of my other friends in the mid-50s walked around as limber as could be, did whatever they wanted to do, lived an active life, and could fully use their body in many ranges of motion. I decided I wished to be like this second group. So yoga and Pilates set a really good baseline foundation of fitness. Not many heavy weights are lifted, but the body is strengthened from the inside out. All about the core, all about the mobility. I think I've taken the Pilates as far as I can, and as such, I've moved to more of a gym-based, pretty typical cardio and weightlifting second set of exercises. But I still do the yoga. My gym exercises are basically focusing as much as I can on the right form, and then slowly increasing my weight so I get stronger, and hopefully my muscles get bigger. It is very good for your self-esteem to like how your body looks. Sure, every body is a marvel and every body is beautiful, but when you feel good about yourself to the point where you wait for your wife to come into the room before you put your shirt on so she might get to notice those extra couple of lines you've put on yourself, that's a good place to be, which is where I want to be and stay. Getting your body in shape also future-proofs you for other things that are going to happen to you as a man. For example, I am very likely to be going Rick Sanchez bald. It isn't getting much thicker back there anyway. Years ago, that would have really bothered me. In fact, when I was overweight, or unhealthy at least, it did really bother me. To the point where I actually took the cream or the stuff that you rub into your scalp to hopefully make it grow back. And you know what? No one told me that a lot of those medicines make you feel suicidal. On a chemical level, they make you feel suicidal. I had a dark thought one time, and I stopped taking that medicine, and I got better almost instantly. Chemistry is powerful. Experiment with it at your own peril. At any rate, having a healthy body future-proofs you and gives you self-esteem in many other ways. I could go horseshoe bald, but I think if my body was still fit and active and able, I would feel alright about myself. In terms of my specific workouts, I do a cardio warm-up usually to avoid leg weights, which I don't enjoy. Leg day memes, am I right? I do my cardio as leg intensive as it can be, so I will do incline treadmill walking or stairmastering or rowing machine, something like that. And then I move on to 5 sets of 8 reps of various weight training. I try and increase the weight each time I go, and on my last set, I will generally try and put the weight up just to see how I'm traveling. I try and spend the most time in the stretch as I can, which means I probably can't lift as much as some of the other gym bros. But from the research, it seems like you get the maximum hypertrophy, muscle growth, from the uncomfortable stretch parts of whatever type of curl you are doing. So I try and do that. In terms of more daily exercise, you may have noticed I have 2 very intelligent dogs that need walking, so I take them for walks. That is also good to get natural sunlight on your face, which is a pretty time-proven way of feeling a whole lot better about everything. So in short, diet and exercise gives you a great baseline of making your body feel better. And if your body feels better, your brain is going to have an easier time at feeling better. But let's get into the weeds now of mental health. Isn't it strange that this apparent crisis in men's mental health seems to line up perfectly with us being on our phones more and more and more, and algorithmic learning?
It's no coincidence.
It doesn't seem like such a mystery as to why chaps are having a bad time keeping their thoughts in order. You see, our brains last had a firmware update about 50,000 years ago, and we are currently using systems on our phones that are designed to harness our subconscious using the most cutting-edge human psychology studies. Our brains do not have a chance at resisting this stuff. I feel men are particularly vulnerable because they harness our outrage triggers and cycles. See, men, perhaps more than others, have a inclination to get angry about things, want to get to the bottom of things, and then effect change in those things. This can be quite a constructive attribute in the real world. However, when channeled online, it is exactly a treadmill going nowhere. Algorithms are getting you mad about stuff from big picture issues like wars and politics to smaller things like why Kathleen Kennedy made Star Wars into a woke. They have us thinking that interacting with these videos, these news stories, these comment threads are going to affect change in these things that we are upset about. They keep us upset about them to keep us in the comment threads, to keep us watching the films, to keep us engaged. But it is all going nowhere. It is a waste of your time, and it is very unhealthy to maintain anger at things that otherwise the anger would have subsided and you would have moved on with your life. But the algorithmic learning of what you enjoy keeps you angry and keeps you watching things and keeps you in what is effectively a pretty antisocial state. Even if your political party that you like isn't going to get in, even if the Rings of Power isn't book accurate, even if they shouldn't have replaced that male character with a female character. Get mad about it, sure. And then you vote with your wallet, or you vote with your vote, and then you move on with your life. It is not normal to stay mad about things and continually refresh that anger over and over again for your entire year. You are not going to, on your deathbed, say, I wish I spent more time complaining that Marvel was woke. I wish I'd spent more time arguing with other people in news story comments. All of that stuff is a treadmill that runs nowhere, and it doesn't even buff your leg muscles. These vampiric apps are wasting your time and your brain.
I'm a gigantic brain!
Most ungentlemanlike.
Be better to your brain.
Stop it. Get some help.
I used to be the same. I used to get into the weeds of news comments. Sometimes I still do. This stuff is hard to resist. It entirely harnesses your subconscious.
Brain make people dumb.
The incendiary triggers are hard to resist.
You're not in charge anymore.
By design, you are supposed to get mad and you are supposed to bite and then sink half an hour of your time into arguing with someone and then refreshing and waiting for them to comment back. All the while, these companies are showing you mobile game ads. That's the plan. You are helping them achieve their plan. Huh, how funny, my screen time report. Speaking of which, what I've been doing to combat this is when I wake up and I have the day to myself, I leave my phone on my bedside table and I go out and I let my brain be bored. I was doing that thing where I had to watch a TV show and have my second screen constantly in my hand, whether I was checking what that actor had been in, whether I was just getting sidetracked and looking at Instagram. It's not a good place to be, and something had to actively change. So now I leave my phone in my room and I let my brain feel that very rare feeling these days, boredom. You see, being bored is something that is actually good for your brain, and your brain is quite good after the initial shock of, oh yuck, I'm bored,
Here we are, trapped for eternity.
of finding you something to do. Perfect example. I sit out in the mornings near the dogs and I have my coffee and I would just sit and doom scroll my phone. Phone. It would go. And then my coffee would be done and I'd go back into the house. Couldn't even tell you what I'd even looked at on my phone. Minute I started leaving my phone inside, I'm sitting out there. I'm looking out in the yard and it's the dogs. They've got their sandpit area, right? They keep dragging all their treasures into it, like bits of tat and bits of crap that they find in the yard. Alan might get a dead bird or something, put it in there for us to all look at. Sometimes I'd look at it and go, oh, that needs to get cleaned. Anyway, back to the important stuff. And I'd go back inside. When I left my phone inside though, the first thing I did after I finished my coffee was, well, may as well get up and rake that up. And I raked it up and I felt so much better. I felt minor accomplishment just doing that. Our phones are not just stopping us from the big picture stuff. They're stopping us from the small wins that make a day better overall. I can't stress this enough. You need to try and actively resist jumping on the rage cycle that things on your phone want you to get involved in. I feel like men are specifically vulnerable to this. Now, introverts like me, I have some bad news for you. Sadly, the antidote to much of this is low-stakes conversations with strangers. It's true though, joining a community-type group, spending time with your fellow man, and keeping the conversations light and civil, your brain loves that shit. At my yoga and Pilates class, it is a wide range of people of different backgrounds. None of us know what each other feels about abortions, Palestine, Kamala Harris, the military-industrial complex. And yet we all get along and have nice, superficial conversation, and it makes us all leave the building feeling a little bit better. And we work on a common endeavor together. Stretching. I don't like that this is true. This does not occur naturally to me. It is a bit like another kind of muscle that you need to make stronger. But this is how you meet people. If you are lonely, this is how you might meet new friends or romantic partners. I mean, the internet could be a stand-in if you have some reason why you can't leave the house or you are dealing with some other things. I guess it's better than nothing, but better than nothing, you know? Eating a bag of lollies is better than eating nothing if you are starving. So, you know, it's all about perspective. So I suppose what I'm saying is, be aware if you are chronically online. I myself was and am constantly resisting the pull of being chronically online. Some advice for dealing with acute issues, specifically anxiety levels. Exactly 1 year ago, a terribly sad thing happened in my circle of people. And as such, a lot of us were feeling heightened emotions about things. in a negative way. I found keeping a journal to be a very, very helpful way of processing this. When something knocks you for six, to use a very Australian term, negative emotional traits which were on the ancillary of your life can often move into the center. And I found myself dealing with a reasonable level of anxiety and catastrophic thinking about things. Keeping a journal allowed me to write those things down, and after a few weeks you would check back and read through your journals, and you would realize very handily that the things you worried about just sort of went away without needing all the worry. When you worry, you suffer twice. Even if the bad thing is going to happen, worrying does not help. And what glib advice to give, which is why the practical way to help is to write it down, and you will train yourself as you read back over your journals. That wasn't worth worrying about. That wasn't worth worrying about. I'm almost embarrassed I wrote down that I was worried about that, because that really just went away. And that is how journaling really helps you. And it helps me so much, I don't even need to do it anymore. It actually taught me something. So do try it.
Do try it.
And of course, drinking less, not using recreational drugs, all the fun stuff. Chemistry is powerful. Experiment with it at your own peril. It's fun in the short term, but it throws out your levels of your reward cycles and what makes you feel good when you go back to neutral. You want your neutral to be a clean neutral and not a I'm not under the effect of anything neutral, because that is not true neutral, my friends. Back to being bored. Your brain will make you have hobbies without even really realizing they're developing. I got into composting. I found it quite interesting because I was a bit bored, a bit more bored than usual because I wasn't on my phone. I got quite interested in why these worms were in this compost. I learned that potworms form in compost that has too much acid and water. So I rebalanced my compost. The potworms went away. Turns out they were indicator pests. I probably wouldn't have had the bother to learn this if I was permanently distracted on my phone. All I'm saying is, let your brain be a little bit bored and it'll find you something to do. And you'll feel a lot better about it. At the very least, you'll do constructive jobs around your house and feel better for that reason. Let's finish up by talking about worldview. Having a good worldview will help your mental health, and having good mental health will help your worldview. Now, what do you think is more likely? Half of all people in the world want poorly for you? They disagree with you so badly that they want bad things to happen to you? Or the very small group of people who control these algorithmic feeds that we are constantly exposed to, maybe they want us to just feel that way. So we spend more time running on the anger treadmill than we do getting things done in our lives. They get more of our watch time, they get our ad revenue, they get our engagement, they get our attention. It's a sad state of humanity that we make this, I would say, 1% of people who don't have a conscience about being that way. But the average person is not like this. The average person is not your enemy, even if they are in various stages of influence by these vampiric processes. They are not your enemy. They truly are in the same boat as you. They're using a brain that was made 50,000 years ago at most, last update at least, and they're trying to use that brain to navigate these systems that are incredibly immense and incredibly powerful. So choosing your worldview to be one of non-cynicism against your fellow man, and perhaps questioning cynicism of those at the very top, is a far better way to be. Consider the chicken. I don't know why it's not relevant, but for a minute, consider the chicken, at least. Hello. Hello. You want to get down? So with that worldview, I would definitely stress that it is more important to put your effort, even your anger, and your desire to affect change into issues local to you. You can scream into the void about issues that you have a very small influence on all day, but I would argue that time is not being well used. And your time is actually as valuable as anyone else's time. We all get about the same amount of years of time, from little old me to Jeffrey Bezos.
Jeffrey Bezos.
We're all going to live for about the same amount of time. Choosing to spend your time on things that actually have meaningful impact on your life and the life of those people around you, I would say is a far better use of that time than screaming into the void. So that is how I choose to see the world lately. So simply changing your worldview to feel a little bit more positive, a little bit less skeptical of your fellow man, and a little bit more skeptical, if you have to be, of the things far above us. It's a much less harmful way of seeing the world, in my opinion. Anyway, some advice for you in this film. You may take some of it, you may take none of it, you may just have found it interesting to hear about the things I do and how I feel about the world. Thank you for watching very much, and I'll see you all in the next film. Goodbye.